big hello, a happy new year, and a very warm welcome to Brand Equity's first episode of 2021 with me, Sonali Krishna. The year 2020 has been a lost year for many with the advent of the coronavirus pandemic. The world has a long list of complaints from 2020. Right on top was the enormous loss of human lives. But add to that, it forced countless offices and professions onto Zoom or to make matters worse out of existence. Industries coped with permanent lifestyle changes, and we as humanity experienced isolation like never before. I could go on and on, but as last week marked the end of 2020 and we begin our journey into 2021, one wonders, how will we look back on this blur of a year? Today on the show, we bring you industry leaders who today will bear all by sharing their personal diary of 2020, articulating for all their experiences, anxieties, and learnings of the year gone by. And of course, what they hope 2021 will bring to the table for them and the industry at large.
First up is the Worldwide Chief Creative Officer of Ogilvy, Piyush Pandey. Working from his home in Goa during the entirety of the lockdown, Piyush Pandey frets that work from home is harder than imagined and warns that 2021 will just be a change in date, not circumstances.
So what do I say about 2020? Enough has been said by experts, the world. Enough has been faced by the citizens of the world. In my lifetime, I have never faced a year like this. This year, I came here to Goa in March for my wife's birthday, which was 21st of March. And 22nd of March, the lockdown started. And since then, I have never stepped out apart from once, which was earlier this month or late last month, to go and meet my dentist in Mumbai. And I came back in a week's time. So I've been here, it has taught you a lot in terms of working longer hours. People think that working from home is easy. But I think in situations like this, people work harder. People want to connect with everyone. And in my two roles, one in India and one internationally, my days lasted from 9 to 9:30 at night. In between, yes, you had your little breaks. Yes, you had your family here. Yes, you had to write. So somebody asked me much earlier that how does it feel to be in a lockdown? Do you feel tied up, tied down? And I said, only my feet are tied. My heart is not tied. My pen is not tied. My spirit is not tied. I'll fight on as much as I can. I do miss that big hug that I give to my people. I do miss interacting with everyone. So Zoom is not a substitute for human beings meeting. Coming to next year is only a change of calendar. This is going to continue for a while till we really settle down. So my plea to everyone and directive to myself is that don't take it easy because the calendar changes dates. Change when life changes. Till then, fight on, carry on, try and do more, try and get more value out of your time, because under pressure, your value will be tested. Yes, there's a Hindi saying, गिरते हैं घुड़सवार ही मैदान जंग में. And they get up and they start riding yet again.
Next up is the advertising veteran and the founder, chairman and managing director of Madison World and Madison Communications, Sam Balsara. With the falling ADEX being a major concern, Sam Balsara looks beyond all gloom and doom of 2020 and lets us in on the positives of the year gone by.
So 2020, of course, was a year like no other. No other year in my long working life of 48 years. Whilst the collapse of ADEX in the second quarter of calendar year is well known to everyone, perhaps what is not so well known is that the year also started very poorly. In the first quarter of this calendar year, not many know that in fact ADEX recorded for the first time in many years a 8% degrowth. Though I think even in 2020, there have been a lot of positives. On the positive side, to me, it showed that man is resilient, especially we Indians, and we can survive, adapt, and change to any situation. I would be lying if I said that I did not spend some anxious moments in the months of April and May. I think one of the things it's proved to me is that we are a resilient lot. And I think, therefore, our resilience came to the fore. And I think we managed the really tough times. But I remain very, very optimistic about 2021, because if after we have been through what we have been through, things can only get better.
Up next is the APAC CEO of Dentsu Aegis Network, Ashish Bhasin, who thanks to COVID-19 is now an avid grocery shopper. Bhasin has witnessed 4 slowdowns in the business over his 30-year career, but believes that it is the current crisis that has helped him reignite his cinephilic side.
Well, this has really been a very different year. I started the year off in Singapore very fresh into my job in my new role as CEO APAC for Dentsu. I had just moved in a few months ago, was just settling down, and then some of our markets, China, which is a very big market of ours, first started going into lockdown because the pandemic was starting even before the Chinese New Year. And from there, I think it was just a series of events. And when you look back onto this year, lots and lots of things happened. On a personal level, I think people were very impacted. I myself was very worried because my daughter wasn't in the country, got her back. But, good comes out of everything that is challenging. And one of the good things was that I have never spent in the last 32 years of working life, I have never spent so much time at home in one place with my family, and the whole family being together was actually a source of strength in some ways. And that's what this pandemic did for a lot of people, for a lot of my colleagues and friends when I speak to them. It brought people closer. In this period, one thing good that happened was that every company relooked at its margins, it relooked at its efficiency, it started finding out how can we manage to do more with less. And one thing I've seen in India is that adversity actually brings the best out of people. Some really great communication actually got created in this period. We saw some very different trends. I mean, there was some consumer behavior that changed forever. And a strange thing from an advertising point of view that happened was a lot more TV was being watched because people were at home. Digital consumption went through the roof because that's all people could do, sit at home, watch TV, watch digital content and so on. So that was something that I have not seen in the last 32 years of my working life, where there is peak viewership but absolutely very minimal amount of advertising. I'm not the best example of work-life balance. In fact, I'm one of the worst examples of that, and I plead guilty to that, and I needed to correct it. I used to be a movie buff, a Hindi movie buff, and after college, the only movies I've ever watched were on flights. So possibly every movie on Singapore Airlines or Jet Airways I'd watched, but that's it. I never consumed content or television, or very little of it otherwise. In these last 6 to 8 months, the amount of Netflix and Amazon Prime and other OTT content that I've got, with the serials I've been able to catch up with, the movies that I've been able to see, that's been a delight. And there is life beyond work. And I think this in some ways kind of shook you up, and therefore, and because this was all you could do, you couldn't go out of home, etc. It brought I had never been to the market, vegetable market or grocery shopping for more than 35, 40 years. After more than 30 years, I think I went to Colaba market to buy onions and potatoes and vegetables on that. That was, it's so much brings you back to reality. Today, I know where rice is available everywhere in Colaba. If you had asked me before that, I had no clue what it cost, where it was available, and what it was, because this was a time you had to find where some things were available in the lockdown and just go out and get it. So I think in many ways, it was a reality check for a lot of us. Everybody was in the same boat. And what amazed me was how helpful people can be to each other, because everybody was struggling and had concerns in your building, your people around, your friends. And to me personally, I think that was one of the highlights of this year.
While you digest that, we're taking a short breather, but you stay exactly where you are, and we'll be back in a jiffy. Welcome back. The show's called Brand Equity, and I'm Sonali Krishna. And here is the second set of confessions, realizations, and learnings from industry leaders that you've been waiting for. Take it away.
And now it's the country manager of WPP India, CVL Srinivas, as he shares his lockdown stories and the key highlights that stood out in 2020 for him.
Okay, so we've been hearing about 2020 for a long time. I guess since the 90s, people have been talking about a Vision 2020, a Mission 2020, and what have you. And I guess a lot of us had personal and professional goals set for this year. So it was a very look forward to year in that sense. And it turned out actually in the first couple of months to be a pretty good, optimistic year. But then look what happened and what a year it's been. Well, on the one hand, we've had massive challenges because of the pandemic, and all of us pretty much overnight having to reinvent the way we kind of work and live and everything else. On the other hand, it's had quite a few positives and some great learning. So for me, actually, it's been a year where I think 5 things really kind of stood out. And I think these are some of the areas which we are really going to focus and build on and carry forward into the coming years. Firstly, just the resilience shown by people, by our colleagues, by corporates, and everyone else to just not just stand up and stay afloat, but to really give their best. The second thing that really stood out for me was the way technology has not just disrupted every industry, but the pace at which things have changed in the last 6 months has been remarkable. COVID, I guess, gets the award for being the chief transformation officer of the century, you can say, the rate at which everyone was forced to adapt to digital. The third thing that stood out was the nimbleness and speed that was required to kind of ensure that we deliver value and we continue to kind of keep our clients ahead of the curve. And especially for large organizations, it was on the one hand challenging, but I think again, thanks to COVID, the kind of processes and everything else that kind of got rewired. And then of course there was purpose and sustainability and all of that, becoming extremely important. And I think it got kind of highlighted by, what the pandemic did to brands and did to consumer sentiment. And last but not the least, thanks to COVID, we also saw fantastic collaboration happening at a pace which was unimagined, both internal as well as external collaboration. So in a nutshell, that was what 2020 was. Really looking forward to 2021 and happier times and healthier times.
Next up is the CEO of IPG India, Shashi Sinha. Sharing his anxieties and worrisome moments during the lockdown, Shashi Sinha believes that 2020 has helped him take out time for self-introspection and also gives his take on how protecting the employee ecosystem will be the main priority in 2021.
It's tough to look at your diary for a peculiar year. 2020, as everyone knows, has been a dramatic year. So a lot happened to all of us, and I'll only share my experiences from the big to small. I think it really was a revelation. This is the year where we introspected. A lot happened to us and our teams. So on the personal front, first, I had a granddaughter and she was away. My wife was away, died in the middle of the lockdown. So that itself did a lot of stuff for me because no servants, no one else. So we're doing everything ourselves. On top of that, our global teams putting pressure that, the Americans are different. We're an American company. So there was intense pressure on layoffs now. And I resisted that pressure because when India, there's no social security, there is no fallback. I just thought the wrong thing to do for people who have worked for 15 years, 20 years to ask them to go. The Americans were ruthless. They said it has to be done. They did it in all markets. They said you must look for a leaner, fitter 2021. I didn't agree with that. And therefore, there was a lot of tension. Small things, people, when we started working from home, a lot of things we took for granted. A lot of our junior employees, staff didn't have work from home facilities. So that had to be done. So there was a lot which happened. And that's the first priority. So I think our priority is going to be the people aspect of, like I call our ecosystem, which is clients, friends, family, and our office staff, So that is going to be a challenge for 2021. Then will come getting life back to normal. For me personally, it's very important to be meeting people, be on the road, finding out what's happening in people's life. For me, the joke used to be that every conversation, work would be 5 minutes, but the surround around that would be half an hour, 40 minutes. Was asked about family, about what's happening in their lives. So all that will go back. I'm hoping and praying we can get back. People are saying work from home. I'm not very thrilled. I mean, yes, those who want to work from home will continue working, but I prefer to get back whenever it's safe to get back to get people going. Coming to my business, 2021, advertising, I think, should recover. I mean, already signs are there, but I'd be careful because, I'd be careful on many fronts while everyone's saying digital is here and digital is booming. Digital is a part of our ecosystem. The overall ADEX depends on the economy. And if the economy takes time to recover, while just now everyone's gung-ho because there's been a great Diwali with IPL there, but I'd be careful. I'd be cautious, probably be cautious and optimistic at the same time. And if the recovery happens to the extent, there's growth of 7-8% in ADEX, and normally ADEX is double of GDP growth. So if GDP growth is 5%, ADEX growth will be about 10%, 8%, 9% in that range. That'll be a good sign. That'll be a really good sign. But I hope and pray that it's across sectors. It's not just on certain sectors like CPG and FMCG, which are growing, e-commerce, which is growing. It should come across fundamental businesses. It should come across businesses which are like auto, insurance, health, whatever. I mean, health insurance are growing. So I think if this happens, I'd be careful, but I'd still be hopeful.
Founded by the chairman and the co-founder of Taproot India, Agnello Dias, he shares his rare experience in the kitchen and his culinary anecdotes during the lockdown as he lists down the major concerns that he has about the advertising industry going forward.
I think when the pandemic started, every one of us, as we are born and brought up in highly competitive atmosphere, took it on as a challenge. We'll beat this. We can take it on. And most of us were very brave about it. It almost seemed like something that was a new client or a new target to aim for. We can create want. We are want creators by nature. That's what we've been trained for as an industry. And we can create desire, and desire can create demand. But there is abuse in every aspect of human existence, and therefore there will be abuse in this. Have we abused the power to create want more than what is needed? And I think slowly we went into a collective kind of self-meditation or self-introspection about what do we really need to do about where we are headed as a race and not just as an advertising community. So it is, I think, undoubted now to my mind that for the 3 or 4 years leading up to 2020, a certain amount of creative arrogance had crept into the industry. We were super confident that people would laugh at all the jokes we cracked. People will cry whenever we want to show them a pretentious kind of pathos. So we almost felt like we had the button for all human emotion in our hands. And that made us overconfident. And overconfidence led to a lot of material success, but led to an erosion of the way we ran our business. Everything became a commercial industry, including the integrity of what we were doing became a commercial industry. So suddenly everything was good enough to win an Effie. Everything was good enough to win a craft award. And this difference between need and want is, I think, what the industry needs to focus on. And it's not just a holistic kind of preachy thing. It's something that we could apply to our entire award ecosystem, the way we run our industry bodies, who's elected where, what statements do we put out. Because right now it's almost, each man, each person guarding his own turf or his job. But we need to relook at what even the other agencies are doing and what we are doing together as an industry. Because I know the industry I was left with by the doyens who walked the corridors of this industry, like Alec Padamsi and Subhash Ghoshal and Mike Khanna. It doesn't seem like we will be leaving the industry in that same state for the future generation. I usually don't say this because I'm often accused of having been, saying it from a position of advantage because I've reached a certain stage in my career. But I think it needs to be said, and if some people feel that it's actually an entitled point of view, I think I would take that barb in exchange for some part of the industry at least relooking at the way we conduct ourselves as an industry for ourselves and the way we conduct ourselves as an industry for our clients. This 9 months or 10 months is an opportunity for that reset. We were seen to play a clear role by most clients 10 or 15 years ago, and I increasingly hear clients say that they know we are needed for something, but they don't know what we are needed for with great clarity. They just know that it's an important box to tick, and very soon it may not be such an important box to tick because they may find that if it's not around, things go fine as well. At home, well, you do realize some things that you would take for granted. Obviously, everybody's been through that. But I think it's no longer cool for the male of the house to not know where things are kept in the kitchen. Having said that, I think there's a difference between cooking and good cooking. Cooking of YouTube can make you a dish, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a great cooking. And I think the realization that making food is one of the most underrated art forms because just because somebody's handwriting is good does not mean that it's good writing. And similarly, a lot of things in the kitchen that we take for granted, a lot of things at home that we take for granted, we never realize the amount of time that goes into the background work that results in the final video of cooking on YouTube. To use the culinary analogy, when you really go into the kitchen, you realize that the cooking video is actually just 1/10 of the preparation of the whole dish. So it's an important lesson.
Well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for this week. We hope you enjoyed the show and related to some of the stories talked about by our industry veterans. Let us know your thoughts on the show on our social media handles mentioned below. I will see you next week, same time, same place. Until then, keep it real.